We are back. So committee members, please take your seat and we'll reconvene.
All right.
Thank you. At least we had somebody answer me. Thank you. All right, we are moving on to item 11. And again, we apologize for the delay. And 11 is the report of the revisit team to Newark Unified School District. Administrator Cheryl Hickey will introduce the item.
Yeah.
And joining her at the table is team lead. Well, I guess she's by technology, right? Julie McNeely?
Uh-huh.
You are there. We can see you. And institutional representative Leonore Ribosura, Director of Teacher Induction. All right. Anyone need to recuse himself? Good morning. All right, Ms. Hickey, please begin.
Well, I am just sitting in momentarily for Lynette Roby, who is in England, as I said, attending a wedding. So I will turn this over to Julie McNeely. This is the revisit report. As you recall, you've seen Newark numerous times as they've had to do a quarterly report. So here's the culmination of what you have seen so far.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Julie.
Good morning, COA committee members. In May 2018, I presented to the Commission the unanimous findings of the site visit team for Newark Unified School District site visit. At that time, the status of Newark's induction program was determined by the COA to be accreditation with probationary status, with probationary stipulations, pardon me. It was in the hope of the site visit team that this recommendation would help Newark Unified School District deepen their understanding of the 2016 Common and Program Standards to assist them in their transition to use these new standards and a subsequent successful program implementation. I am pleased to share with you today that through the passion and dedication and commitment of the program leadership, the findings of the Newark site visit team are that all common and program standards are now fully met, and that the accreditation status be changed from accreditation with probationary stipulations to accreditation. To fully understand this recommendation, it is important to highlight the findings and program strengths from this review that were based on interviews from all stakeholders and a review of program documents. 1. Newark Unified School District now implements a program that is focused on individualization and candidate growth. General education and education specialists now experience identical programs, eliminating prior inconsistencies between the programs. Candidates' knowledge, skills, and abilities are the foundation of the ILP goal development and program work. In the words of one candidate interviewee, quote, "I wanted to create a goal so I could bring my passion together with my needs," end quote. Number 2, a robust mentoring program is now fully implemented, providing both weekly support as well as just-in-time support to candidates. In the words of another candidate interviewee, quote, "Our mentor is the biggest part of the program. She helps in streamlining our goals," end quote. Number 3, data collection and critical analysis has become the foundation to the program and provides all stakeholders with the opportunity to provide confidential feedback to the program. Data is collected from all stakeholders at multiple points in time during the school year. Analysis of data is transparently shared with all stakeholders, including formative feedback to mentors on their work with candidates. The Newark program now utilizes these data to make programmatic changes that are continually focused on meeting the needs of their candidates. Number 4, it was reported by all stakeholders that the new focus on mentoring and support has resulted in an impact on teaching and learning in the classrooms. Candidate reflection and analysis of teaching practice based on identified criteria has become a hallmark of the Newark program. As stated by a candidate interviewee, quote, "My mentor was a huge support with assignments that helped me. My mentor just listened to me all the time, and she helped me to reflect and never give up." And number 5, it is important to note that although I've only identified the words from a few candidates, these ideas were echoed by mentors, site administrators, and district leadership throughout our interviews. In summary, the Newark Unified School District program, under the passionate leadership and hard work of Leonore, has fully transitioned to the 2016 Common and Program Standards. All standards are now fully met. The commitment of all district leadership ensures that the Newark program is focused on robust mentoring to positively impact individual teacher growth and student learning. It is the recommendation of this team that all stipulations be removed and the accreditation status be changed from accreditation with probationary stipulation to accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McNeely. We now like to call on the institutional representative to briefly comment about the visit. We remind you it's not a time to dispute the team report, but rather provide any thoughts that you had about the visit.
All I can say is thank you. Really appreciate the feedback that you've given us, the COA has given us throughout the year. That's given us the structure to make the changes we needed to do. Appreciated the feedback from Julie as a team lead as well. And we're just very pleased that we're finally able to meet the standards.
Thank you. Any committee member wish to ask a question or make any comment? Okay. Oh, yes, Member Briggs.
Well, it just seems like a momentous day for you, and I congratulate you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Co-Chair Moore.
I'd like to say congratulations, Leonore. We've known each other for a long time. We know the work. It's tough.
Yes.
Well done. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the site visit team of removal of all stipulations and full accreditation.
Thank you. Is there a
Thank
second?
you.
Second by Committee Member Erickson. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and congratulations. Well earned. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also thank you, Ms. McNeely, for your work on that. Thank you. We're moving on to item 12, which is the report of the accreditation team to Santa Clara University. And consultant Dr. Sarah Solari Colombini will introduce the item. And joining her at the table is team lead Mimi Miller and institutional representatives Dr. Sabrina Zirkel, Dean, School of Education and Counseling Psychology, Dr. Marco Bravo, Chair of the Department of Education, and Dr. Francisca Miranda, Associate Dean. Anyone need to recuse themselves? All right, seeing none, Ms. Colombini, would you please begin?
Certainly. Good morning. Okay, this morning I'm here to assist in presenting this report for Santa Clara University. An accreditation site visit was conducted April 28th through May 1st of this year by the team lead, Mimi Miller, who was accompanied by Common Standards reviewers Ann Weisenberg and Connie Campbell. Santa Clara University offers a preliminary multiple and single subject program with the option for a bilingual authorization and preliminary administrative services credential program. These programs were reviewed by team members Eugenia Mora Flores and Glenn Sewell. The site visit was facilitated by my colleague, William Hattrick. William would like to extend his thanks to both the institution and the team for an excellent site visit experience. Both were very well prepared. So I'll hand over this presentation to the team lead, Mimi Miller, so that she may provide you with the team's findings on the common standards, program standards, and the recommendation for the accreditation decision.
Thank you, Sarah. Before reporting the findings for program and common standards, I'd like to report that at the visit, the team heard consistent positive remarks from stakeholders regarding the high quality of teachers and leaders prepared at Santa Clara University. One particular area of strength is Santa Clara's deep attention to diversity and social justice. Through their outreach, tuition help, and offering courses in various formats and locations, the unit has successfully brought into the teaching profession individuals from diverse and underrepresented groups. The mission is clearly passed on to candidates. One candidate said that the program helped him and others in his cohort, and I quote, to realize the power that we have to change the world and to empower our students and the community that we serve. On behalf of the accreditation team, I'd like to express appreciation for an enacted mission that serves California's diverse student population. So now on to the report. First, I'll report on program standards and then common standards. For program standards, all program standards were met for the preliminary, multiple, and single subject credential programs, except for Program Standard 5, implementation of a teaching performance assessment, which was met with concerns. The team found inconsistent evidence that adjunct faculty were knowledgeable about how the newly adopted TPA model is implemented within the program. For the bilingual authorization, all program standards were fully met except for Program Standard 4, bilingual methodology, which was met with concerns. This standard requires that the program prepares candidates to plan, develop, implement, and assess instruction in the primary language, which in this case is Spanish. However, evidence of the implementation of standards-aligned content instruction in Spanish was not found for all single subject candidates. So now on to the preliminary administrative services credential. All program standards were met for the preliminary administrative services credential program except for Program Standard 2, which is collaboration, communication, and coordination, which was met with concerns. The team was unable to confirm that partners share responsibility for the selection of field sites, design of field experiences, selection and preparation of field experience supervisors, and assessment and verification of candidate competence. So those are the program standards. Now going on to the common standards. For the common standards 2 and 5 were fully met. Common standards 1, 3, and 4 were met with concerns. So I'll just talk about the rationale for that. So standard 1 is the institutional infrastructure to support education preparation, and that was met with concerns. The standards require opportunities for stakeholders to, quote, be actively involved in the organization, coordination, and decision-making for all education programs. Well, there's evidence of this occurring in the educational leadership program. There's inconsistent evidence of this in other education preparation programs. Standard 2, candidate recruitment and support, was found to be fully met. Common Standard 3, fieldwork and clinical practice, was met with concerns. The rationale for this is that there was inconsistent evidence of collaboration between Santa Clara University and their partners in the criteria and selection of site-based supervisors in the educational leadership program. There was inconsistent evidence that site-based supervisors in that program were trained in supervision oriented to the supervisory role or evaluated and recognized in a systematic manner. For Standard 4, continuous improvement, that was met with concerns. While interviews confirmed various data sources are collected and used to generate program improvements at the program level, evidence did not support the consistent use of data at the education unit level to make modifications that would constitute a comprehensive and continuous improvement process. A review of evidence and interviews could not confirm that the unit regularly and systematically analyzed and used candidate and completer data to promote continuous improvement, nor that key stakeholders such as employers and community partners provided continuous feedback about quality of the preparation program. Standard 5, Common Standard 5, was also found to be fully met. So the overall recommendation of the team, on the basis of this report, the team makes a recommendation of accreditation with stipulations. the team recommends the following stipulation, which you can find on page 3 of the report. Within 1 year, the institution would submit a report including evidence documenting the following. And there are 4 elements. The first is that the institution actively involves relevant stakeholders in the organization, coordination, and decision-making for all education preparation programs. The second, that educational leadership program partners share responsibility for the selection of field sites, design of field experiences, selection and preparation of field experience supervisors, and assessment and verification of candidate competence. The third item in the report, that the education unit develops and implements a comprehensive continuous improvement process at both the unit level and within each of its programs that identifies program and unit effectiveness and makes appropriate modifications based on data from candidates, program completers, and feedback from key stakeholders. And then the final element would be evidence that the single subject candidates in the bilingual authorization Spanish program implement and assess standards aligned content instruction in Spanish.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Thank you. We now invite the institutional representatives to briefly comment about the visit. We remind you this is not a time to dispute the team report, but rather provide any thoughts that you had about the visit itself.
Thanks. Thank you. So thank you, Mimi, for that summary. In terms of the visit, I would say the visiting team was wonderfully collaborative and helpful in helping us ensure that we could demonstrate everything that we had available. And the process itself was very helpful in helping us think about the ways that we can do better at various little pieces that kind of fell by the wayside. So as you probably heard again and again, it was sort of inconsistent this, inconsistent that. So I can say that we, Francisca Miranda, my associate dean, and I, and my team in education have been working on it. And I would say most of those changes will be in place before the fall semester. We have new onboarding processes for all adjunct faculty. We're taking a harder, closer look at all our bilingual placements in single subject. Our educational leadership program is developing the systems in place to ensure that we have more formalized agreements around field site supervisors, site selection, all the materials that she suggested, and and then in terms of the use of data, we're rethinking how we collaborate with our, we have a director of assessment, and how we think about that role and how we think about the collaboration on the collection and use of data. It's been a little too separated from the department. So they have used data in each program, but not always in the department level. So I think pretty much everything will be in place by the start of the academic year.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to comment from the institution?
Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our CTC consulting advisor. I was so productive in allowing us to not only reflect what had occurred years ago, but what we're currently doing and how to move forward in the continuous program improvement process, which is very, very productive, in my opinion. Likewise, the team who came to visit with Mimi's leadership certainly helped us in this entire process. So once again, thank you very much for the opportunity to address not only areas where we need to improve, but that it become an ongoing continuous program improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any committee members? Yes, Member Riggs.
No, I was very impressed with the number of candidates you had interviewed. That was a high number, 108 candidates being interviewed. And I wondered if that had something to do with some of the inconsistencies that were revealed through those interviews that sometimes might be missed if you didn't have so many candidates interviewed. And so I was very curious about the single subject bilingual and how it was that some people were slipping through and not getting that experience in primary language of Spanish.
Yeah, it was really our single subject intern candidates who had identified their own placement, and our typical bilingual coordinator lead was on sabbatical during that period of time and didn't catch that some of them were not in the ideal settings in which to give instruction in Spanish. So they have been giving instruction in Spanish in smaller groups or in certain contexts, but it's not in the ideal way. Yeah.
Member Alvarado.
So thank you for the remarks on, so the focus on using data for continuous improvement. Can you share with us a little bit about some of the things you've implemented or will be implementing to ensure that that's more of a systemic, ongoing effort in your programs?
Yeah, we're building greater bridges between the Director of Assessment and the Department of Education. It's a department which holds both credential programs, both Ed Lead and teacher education programs. So they will be meeting more regularly to ensure that not just in the program meetings where faculty are discussing the results of particular program outcomes, but that we as a department and then with me as the leader of the school, we can discuss more information about the what's happening at the broader level in terms of completion rates, in terms of generally how our candidates are being seen, strengths and weaknesses out there. So in particular, that's going to be changing the data that we collect because those people will be meeting regularly with faculty in those departments. Currently, the Director of Assessment has lived a little bit too separately from the department. We have other departments in the school, and we're just trying to build those bridges so that before every survey goes out, the leadership team and the department faculty are all looking at the survey to make sure it captures all the data we need.
So the Director of Assessment is based in the school, not the university?
It's based in the school, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so she'll be very responsive.
Member Palatayo.
What changes are being made to extend information out to adjuncts? I understand that they have been left out of the loop in terms of information.
Yeah, so again, some context might be helpful. In the traditional notion of an adjunct faculty member who's only teaching a couple of courses, they're a very small part of our program. So we do have adjunct faculty who teach full-time. They come to faculty meetings. They're very well aware of everything. But we do have a few courses here and there that are taught by adjuncts from outside the program, and those are the ones that the team was concerned about. So we've set up a system where they have three choices, depending really probably on their level of engagement with the university and their level of commitment, ability to commit time. So one is they can join the faculty meetings. Some do, and they can continue to do that and learn about the program that way. They can actually attend the workshops with students on TPA assessments, or they can meet individually with the TPA assessment coordinator to particularly, so if somebody comes in to just teach one course, they probably just want to meet with the assessment coordinator to know a little bit about how this relates to the TPAs and make sure that they're in total alignment on how those course objectives and the syllabus they got connect to the TPAs and the TPA schedule. Does that answer your question?
Follow up. So is this on a case-to-case basis, or is there a set?
No, it'll be a systematic process. Okay. So every time we hire somebody, they will, even every year, they will have to meet with the TPA coordinator to get updated on that process.
Is there a set number of hours, or is there a system in place just yet?
Well, if they were wanting to just meet individually with the person, it would probably be a 2-hour meeting at the beginning of every academic year. I don't think that there would be one meeting for every adjunct where there would be a group. He would be meeting individually. There are so few instructors that are doing this that he would just be meeting with individual instructors. You're teaching the working with students with disabilities class. So here's how the TPAs work around that, and here's the timing, and here's what we need to see, and here's the things you need to be thinking about. So it wouldn't be one workshop for everybody. So a 2-hour meeting really should be sufficient to cover what needs to be covered.
All right, any further discussion? All right, so is there a motion to go ahead and accept the team findings, which is located bottom of page 2 on page 3? So moved by Committee Member Forbes, seconded by Committee Member Riggs. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Thank you all the representatives from Santa Clara. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Thank you, Dr. Colombini. Appreciate it. We are now moving on to item 13. The report of the revisit team to CSU Channel Islands. Consultant Hart Boyd will introduce the item, and joining him via video technology is institutional representative Dr. Brian Sevier. Is that correct? Dr. Sevier, can you hear us? Yeah.
I think Hart has been in contact with them. He was on earlier, right? Oh, he was just on just a moment ago. Okay.
Dr. Sevier, can you hear us? In the meantime, does anyone need to recuse himself? I see no recusals.
I think that.
Should we move to item 14? Just keep things moving?
Just give us 1 second.
Okay. Sure.
There we go.
There we
A
go.
little patience.
Dr. Sevier, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can. Excellent. Dr. Sevier is the Dean of School of Education. So seeing no one need to recuse themselves, Mr. Boyd, would you please begin?
Yes. This is a report of the Accreditation Revisit Team to California State University Channel Islands. A site visit was held on April 30th to May 3rd, 2018 at the CSU-CI campus in Camarillo, California. As a result of that site visit, the Accreditation Site Visit Team recommended the status of accreditation with stipulations. After the site visit report was presented at the June 2016 Committee on Accreditation meeting, the COA determined that CSU-CI should both provide a 6-month update on how the stipulations were being addressed and also host a site revisit 1 year after the initial accreditation site visit. This revisit was held on April 25th and 26th at the CSU-CI campus. The revisit proceeded in accordance with all accreditation protocols. Everyone at CSU-CI has been great to work with over the past couple of years, and they were extremely thorough in their preparation for this revisit, especially the Dean of the School of Education, Dr. Brian Sevier. Dean Sevier is joining us today via technology and will be available for questions after the presentation of the revisit findings. Unfortunately, the team lead, Donna Elder, and my co-consultant on the revisit, Lynette Roby, couldn't be here today as they are both on vacation. However, our team lead has provided a write-up on the revisit findings, which I will go over now. First, Donna wanted to apologize for not being here today, but she's on a cruise in the Baltic, so she can't feel that bad about it. She would like to extend her thanks to all the staff, faculty, and the administration at CSU-CI for hosting us, and she would also like to give a special thank you to Dean Brian Sevier for providing the team with all of the information that was needed for the revisit. Now to go over the findings. From the initial visit in 2018, the team found that Common Standards 1 and 3 were met with concerns and that Common Standard 4 was not met. During the revisit, the team interviewed 84 administrators, faculty members, staff, advisory board members, candidates, and completers. All documents were reviewed as well as the 6-month report. From the interviews and document reviews, it was evident that everyone in the School of Education had worked towards addressing all stipulations and meeting all standards over the past year. All groups that were interviewed were clear on the plan for the school and articulated the vision and mission of the school and how it was being implemented. In the interviews, the work of each committee that was formed to address the common standards was shared. After a complete review, the team found common standards 1, 3, and 4 to be met. The School of Education is to be commended for the thoughtful way in which they addressed the stipulations from the team report from 2018, and the team unanimously recommends accreditation.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd, during double duty. Appreciate it. This opportunity now for the institutional representative to comment about the visit. We remind you not a time to dispute the team report, but rather provide any thoughts you had about the visit. So, Dr. Sevier, would you like to offer any comments?
I just wanted to say that we were very grateful to the team that came. Our consultants at CTC, Hart Boyd and Lynette Roby, were incredible over the last year. It's almost exactly a year to the day when I came before this committee. I was pretty new dean and had only been at Channel Islands for less than a year, and so it was quite an uphill climb in terms of getting up to speed with the accreditation process, but also figuring out where we were as a school. And this opportunity, I really look at the accreditation piece as an opportunity for us to grow. And we really, I feel that we've done quite a bit of work over the last year to really take the committee's recommendations and the team's recommendations from last year to make our school not just comply with the standards, but to really use that feedback and that information to help us grow, to be better responsive to the community we work in and work with, and to really consider how we use data to drive improvements for our School of Education and really set a course for and a foundation for where we want to go in the future. So it's been a pretty amazing year, and I really, again, thank our consultants from CTC and this committee for really having faith that we could take on this task over the last year to really right the ship. And I think I talked last year about that we were almost at square one in terms of some of the common standards. And so it's been an incredible year, I think, and we're really happy to be moving forward. And big thanks to Donna Elder as well. She was a great team lead. So yeah, again, thank you to the committee and thank you to the team.
Thank you, Dr. Sevier. Committee members, anybody wish to make a comment or ask a question? All right, seeing none, just calling your attention on page 2 of the report on the top. That's the recommendation of the revisit team. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation? So moved by committee or Co-Chair Moore, second by Committee Member Tchaikovsky. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Dr. Sevier, and thank you so much for your flexibility this morning. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. This is great news for us.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Item 14 is a report of actions taken by Mills College to address stipulations. Consultant Dr. Sarah Solari Colombini will present the item, and joining her at the table is institutional representative Dr. Diane Cattell. Is that correct? Thank you. Dean of Education. Anyone need to recuse himself? Ms. Colombini, would you please begin?
Certainly. Thank you. So this morning I'm here to provide you a report of actions taken by Mills College to address the stipulations assigned to them as a result of their accreditation visit that occurred on March 4th through the 7th of 2018. Since that time, Mills College has been working on addressing the stipulations and has provided one update to the COA in January of this year. The report that is in front of you today includes more recent evidence that Mills has provided that they've implemented with respect to improving both their content-specific instruction in the area of math and science that candidates receive to assist them in their single subject preparation, and improve at the unit level in the area of continuous improvement. So staff is recommending that the stipulations for Mills College be removed and that the accreditation status be changed from accreditation with stipulations to accreditation. Dean Diane Cattell is here with us today to answer any questions you may have about the improvements they have made, should you have any. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Dr. Colombini. We now want to invite Dr. Cattell. Any comments you'd like to make about the visit? Remind you, not a time to dispute the team report, but rather any thoughts that you had about the visit that you'd like to share with us.
I'm happy to be here. I was here in January to report to you our progress, and we've continued to make steady progress. At our March visit in 2018, there were two findings in the accreditation visit. One was related to our math science single subject credential students needing a separate content area seminar. We have now implemented that. Interestingly, we had had a long history of having a separate seminar, and the year that we had the accreditation, at the provostial level, a decision was made to consolidate that seminar around budgetary concerns. So although we never want findings in an accreditation visit, this one actually was quite helpful to the School of Education. You may not hear that very often. And now we've pretty much, because of this finding, been able to secure that separate seminar, which we had always had. But maybe moving into the future without that finding, there could have been some tension or a fight around it. Because enrollment in our math science program some years can be lower. And with a threshold of 10 to meet our seminar limit on the Mills campus, if it fell below 10, then the provost thought it should be consolidated into the humanities single subject content course with some accommodation, pull out, and so forth. We weren't just throwing them in there. So we've done that, and we feel very enthused about it because you've helped us secure that seminar. So thank you very much. The second finding we had was around Common Standard 4, which I think is one you may see quite a bit. As a small institution running small programs, this element of being able to collect data and show continuous improvement had always been quite informal within our department. We run what we think operate what we believe to be high quality credential programs. They're always very small. We're a small faculty. We are kind of high touch. So we always thought we were doing it without any systemization. What this finding has provided for us was the opportunity to realize we weren't doing all of it, and that actually sitting down and figuring out what each program was going to collect and what the department would collect, how the dean would review that material, and how that would lead to continuous improvement within the programs and within the department writ large, has actually ended up being quite constructive and quite departmental opportunity. Everyone has been involved in this, and we this year were able to point to the high the 100% passage rates in EdTPA. Although APA wasn't consequential, all of our admin credential students passed it. And in our ECE special ed program, which doesn't have an exam, but we have a capstone project, they all passed that with quite flying colors. And we really pointed to that as one outcome of just becoming more systematized. It isn't that we had a program of failure prior. We didn't have a lot of students enrolling at Mills and not doing well when they graduated, but it really reinforced or created a kind of confidence within the faculty that by taking this time to systematize and really look at what we were doing, we could better reinforce or predict perhaps this outcome for our students. And that's certainly what we want to be able to do. We want all of the students who enroll at Mills to be highly successful, not just in passing what they need to pass to get a credential, but then moving out into the field and really viewing teaching or leadership as professions, not hobbies or something they'll do for a year or two. So we feel that more than feel, we know that the work we've done to date has been quite helpful in terms of systematizing the data. We can acknowledge that we weren't doing it before when we thought we were. We actually weren't. And that we can talk and point to how collecting that data is and has become and will be more so moving into the future, useful and helpful to our faculty and to our students. So I thank you. The visit was great. I thank Sarah for all of her helpful feedback and support through this process. And thank you.
Well, thank you for your enthusiasm and your positive outlook on the entire process. It helps to know that what we do here within the COA, that the feedback that you provide for us is beneficial in you and being able to provide and develop a even stronger program for your students and your faculty. So thank you for sharing that with us. All right, COA members, any opportunity now is to offer any questions or ask any questions, offer comments. Committee Member Riggs.
I know you have only 1 year of data related to the subject-specific pedagogy and the change you've made in the coursework there for science and math, but I wondered if you did glean anything from that data for the year.
Well, of course, it's much better to have a subject-specific seminar for those students. Teaching math and science is distinct and different from being involved in the teaching of English or social sciences. So, and not just in we got a lot of positive student feedback that it was positive, but it also allowed, we have a tenure track faculty member who is focused on math and science, which allowed that highly skilled faculty member to spend more time with those students, which was why that position was ever created in the first place. So sometimes these institutional decisions get made, especially outside of a professional school, where some of the administrators on campus just don't understand credentialing. They don't understand what it is we're doing, that the pieces we have in place are actually there because they're useful and helpful. So both from the faculty perspective and from the side of students, we got very positive feedback. And again, they all progressed through EdTPA and will be moving out. Many of them already have jobs. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other committee member? Member Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I just have to say I really appreciate what you just said. Especially at the secondary level, not all content instruction is created equal. And if we're going to have shifts that have been strategically designed to improve access to college and career readiness, then we need to have teachers who are prepared to deliver and build understanding around those disciplinary skills. So thank you for investing in that.
And it's maybe, I'll just say one more time, it may not be something you hear a lot, but a finding from an accreditation report can be helpful in reinforcing the practice we're trying to accomplish within our departments. And this was a terrific example where we knew that seminar mattered. That seminar was taken away through budgetary process. People who don't understand anything about credentialing, they're just looking at other elements, right? And then our ability to come back and say, look, this program really hinges on students being able to be taught about this content and teaching and learning around this content from individuals who understand this content. And that needs to be what they do each semester. So that was very, very positive. And I really encourage you at moments when there can be these kind of findings to find out if there are budgetary constraints being placed on programs. Yeah.
And we appreciate the illustration that we are all in this together. We're all for the same purpose, for the students, for the faculty. So thank you for sharing that. Committee Member Relatayo.
In that same vein, I appreciate your willingness to readily adapt to the student feedback being given to you. In fact, I really like that you guys are now increasing class time for school law and working with families and communities and school finance, which I think is integral to, again, your mission of making sure that your candidates do well beyond their time at Mills and beyond their requisite 2 years or whatever, and going on as practitioners and educators for a lifetime. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one because this had nothing to do with the finding in our administrative credential program had no findings at all. But we got feedback from our students. We had this unique system of keeping credit at Mills College for a long time. And then a few years ago, we translated it to the Carnegie credits. And when we translated to Carnegie credits, some seminars became 4 units and some became 2 units. So we got this feedback from students that the law class need, I guess we don't often hear this from students. We need more. It needs to be more. It needs to be longer. We need to meet longer. We love the professor. We love the content, but it's too much content for a 2-unit course. At the same time, we were getting similar feedback on the school finance course in the admin credential. And so we didn't increase credit in the program, but we shifted credits around so that those programs got more time. And then the field experience courses, which had translated when that Carnegie thing happened to 4 units each, but they really met for just a little over an hour a week. We reduced credit in those, which was very appropriate in order to increase credit in these content courses where students wanted it. So again, not related to a finding of the commission, but related to sort of not, but then again, sort of yes, because it had to do with this systematization of collecting data and making sure we were getting feedback from students regularly, which was part of our system.
Thank you. Unless there are any further comments or questions from the committee, the recommendation from the report is to remove the stipulation for Mills College and change its accreditation status from accreditation with stipulations to accreditation. Is there a motion to accept that? So moved by Committee Member Forbes, seconded by Committee Member Malatayo. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Dr. Catillo. Also, thank you, Dr. Colombini.
Well done this morning. All right, we're going to reconvene this meeting with item 15. 1 p.m. time certain, but, well, it was 1 o'clock time certain. Now it's 1:15, which is the report of the accreditation team to Pomona Unified School District. Consultant Gay Roby will introduce this item. Joining her at the table are institutional representatives Dr. Catherine Morillo, shown the Director of Equity and Professional Learning. Wait, who are we missing? Where's Gay? Gay's there. Coming. Okay. Come on up. Thank you. And Dr. Let me see, Marlo Yep Vaughn, PAACP Coordinator, is not going to be here. We'll miss her. And by video team lead, Stella Duarte. Is by the video, are you in person? Okay, awesome. All right, Ms. Does anybody need to recuse themselves? Okay, Ms. Roby, will you begin, please?
Thank you very much. The Pomona Unified School District site visit occurred on April the 29th through May the 1st of this year. There was a team of 3 who served on this team, plus myself as a consultant. Everything was normal except for my arrival. We had gone to Chicago and got snowed in April, and we ended up having to fly into Burbank. And if you know Southern California, I live in Whittier. So we flew into Burbank at 11:30, had to rent a car at midnight, called Cheryl and said, can I just keep the car for the visit? So it was a little odd, but I made it there in time to start the site visit, which was nice. And it was in the very capable hands of Stella Patron Duarte, who was our team lead. I'll turn it over for her.
tips and CASC induction program. As a team lead, I would also like to thank Pomona Unified School District, and thank you for being here, the Pomona program directors, and the site visit team, and of course, Gay Roby for leading us in this process. The site visit team would like to highlight several key areas from both the common and the program standard evidence reviewed. First area, PSUD induction programs are responsive to the needs of their participants. We found evidence of that in our review and in our visit. Both the teacher induction and the Pomona's administrative clear credential program are a function of the district's Division of Educational Services. The entire Division of Educational Services operates as an integrated system using a variety of learning opportunities supporting curriculum, instruction, and assessment while addressing the diverse needs of their students. Interviews with district leadership verified that the Educational Services Department supports and provides ongoing professional development and support for both teachers and administrators, ensuring that they are prepared to deliver the best education possible to their students. Evident from interviews with participating teachers, mentors, coaches, and site leaders, the program coordinators and their team members are effective in their roles. They function well as an induction team and are well versed in Pomona Unified School District policies and curriculum practices, as well as the state requirements for both induction programs. As experienced PUSD administrators, the program coordinators, and the induction team members have a deep understanding of the needs of their students. They have a deep understanding of their needs of their students, are able to efficiently coordinate and implement all aspects of the induction programs, and monitor and report the impact and effectiveness of the program to their district level team. Another area we wanted to highlight, the program values continuous improvement. As they reflect on the effectiveness of their programs, interviews with the Advisory Council, which serves both as the teacher induction and the administrative induction programs, confirmed that their input is valued and used to inform program decisions. Program leaders from both programs welcome and value feedback and are responsive to that feedback. During our interviews, an advisory member shared, program leaders really listen to us. They make changes to improve the program. In the 2018-2019 year, the program established an online platform that has made it convenient for both the participating teachers and the admin candidates to access all induction resources. At the same time, this online system has provided program staff with the ability to closely monitor program effectiveness and provide better services to its participants. Final area we'd like to highlight, Pomona Unified School District values and support building the capacity of their mentors, teachers, and leaders. Evident from interviews with participants and candidates from both programs, coaches and mentors are the most valuable part of the induction experience. In order to continue to support both the mentors and the coaches, the program provides extensive training for their coaches. New coaches and mentors receive 3 full days of initial coaching training, ongoing full-day training throughout each year. And in addition to that, they have opportunities to network with each other throughout each of the participating years. Furthermore, both induction programs allow for their participants to engage in more individualized professional learning opportunities that are aligned to their goals. Therefore, they provide less sit-and-get professional work sessions. The program administrators understand that adult learning must be differentiated just as teachers differentiate for students in their classrooms. As identified in the program director's message, they have adopted Harvard's 3 Just of future learning. Pomona Unified School District aims to offer just enough resonant, just-in-time relevant, and just-for-me responsive professional learning opportunities to all adult learners in their system. Based on findings, the team has the following recommendations. The unanimous recommendation of the team is accreditation based on a thorough review of the program documentation and evidence collected throughout the site visit. The team felt that it obtained sufficient and consistent information that led to high degree of confidence in making overall and programmatic judgments about the professional education unit's operation. The decision pertaining to the accreditation status of the institution was based on the following. Common standards. The team members discussed all documentation, evidence, and information collected. Following these discussions, the team considered whether the common standards were met with concerns, or not met. The consensus of the team is that all common standards are met. Program standards. Discussion of findings and appropriate input by individual team members and by the total team membership was provided for the induction program. Following the discussion of the program review, the team considered whether the program standards were met with concerns or not met. The consensus of the team is that all program standards are met with the exception of induction program standard 3 that was met with concerns. And it was met with concerns for the following reasons. Through the examination of evidence and interviews with stakeholder groups, the team found that candidates are required to complete a series of identical tasks and complete uniform paperwork. Although this is the case, the team found that the program has already begun to address the identified areas of the concern. And that was done immediately as soon as we provided that feedback that day. The program director acted on that immediately and has reached out to other institutions and to the team members who are all experienced induction coordinators. And so we are confident that they are moving to address the issue.
Terrific. Thank you, Ms. Pedro Duarte, for your service and that wonderful report. We now call upon the institutional representative to make a few comments about the site visit. Just a reminder, it is not a time to argue the findings of the site visit, but to clarify or share some thoughts that you had about the site visit itself.
Good afternoon. Such an honor to represent Pomona Unified School District. I just really want to thank, first and foremost, the visiting team. They've been wonderfully supportive from the get-go, and we've learned so much from the visit and the ongoing interactions with CDC as we prepare for the visit. I think I would just like to validate Ms. Hella's comment regarding the transition or the changes that we've made so far. 2 years ago when we got the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant, actually that was the time that we started all of the transitions, not just to revive and redesign our induction program, but also to begin our systems for professional learning and growth. We actually visited San Juan or San Jacinto right up here in North and have collaborated with Santa Ana Unified School District to see what they're doing and how we can be a lot more innovative. But with additional recommendations from the team, it actually propelled us to take it to the next level. We've included our empathy interviews, went back to the team, have some planning, conversations, and brainstorming this summer. As a matter of fact, all of the requirements that we have on the list, the only thing that's remaining right at this point was a individualized learning plan. We are redesigning also everything so that we continue to be a lot more responsive and use the continuous improvement science all the way from all different stakeholders, starting from the teachers' voice. Additionally, we've created an induction co-teaching team so that those two co-teachers become the Action Learning Lab and the Hub modeling best practices. And that's where our teachers actually can observe, the new teachers can observe, and they continue to be their professional learning, cohort as well. I'm not sure what else to share, but we, the other thing is for this redesigning the ILP plan, just making sure that we abide by all of the recommendations. And we just thank the committee for being there and supporting us as we continue to build the efficacy of our teacher leaders in the program.
Thank you for that thoughtful response. It sounds like you've responded a lot already, and you're on your way to a great year with meeting the new standards, 2016 standards. Thank you. At this time, the floor is open to the committee members. Member Tchaikovsky.
Thank you, and congratulations on your program and the visit. I'm curious about your next steps or what you're thinking in terms of ILP process revision. What have you learned from this, and how will that inform where you go next in terms of having the ILP actually serve the purposes that are defined in the 2016 standards?
One of the things that that actually I did not elaborate earlier is what last year was the first year that we started our Pomona Administrative Clear Credentialing Program. It's really good because while I'm familiar with the teacher induction program as a director, we were able to experience organically what that feels and actually serve as a coach in our administrative induction program. And I'm sharing that because I think it's important that we experience how the candidates are experiencing the program, the coaches, the mentors. And right away, we drew some direct parallels on how we're serving the candidates. Even that one, we're changing the labels because we still call them participating teachers and support providers. Like, let's start with the language first and then take it on in the practice. So we've redesigned the individual learning plan, taking on the feedback from our candidates and make it a lot less complex. It doesn't have to be like that. The center of the interaction between the candidate and the coach is coaching. So that's kind of like the standard of practice. We're going back to reflective practice at the core of the induction program. And we've redesigned right now. We haven't shared it yet with of course, the support providers or the coaches or mentors, because we're going to have our kickoff in August. And what we've redesigned the meetings. Number one is before we actually have a separate meeting between the coaches and the participating the coaches and the candidates. Now they are all collaborative meetings. They're one and they're both there. The other component of that collaborative meeting is a data dialogue. So that's also part of their individualized learning plan. So when they meet, it's not a separate task. Everything that they're doing when they're meeting collaboratively, there's a data dialogue, there's reflection, and coaching. They're all embedded. So the form actually reflect that plan, teach, and reflect. And I'm not sure if I completely answered your question. So it's not just a form redesign, it's really the program redesign to be much more responsive to the candidates.
Well, so it sounds like what you've done is you said, okay, the goal here is to develop this ILP. Like, that's kind of the outcome. And so these activities that you're funding and supporting and guiding are toward that end of assembling this and implementing this plan that comes really from the candidate.
Correct.
Right. It's a little trick to make that happen, right, I think, because like you, I'm responsible for a program informed by those new standards, as of 2016. I haven't found it that easy, so I appreciate your explanation.
Oh. It's a journey. It's a process. Thank you.
I had a question about your types of mentors. You have quite a few options for candidates, it looks like, if I'm understanding this correctly. It's bottom of page 6. And I was curious as to how you do the pairing with so many different options, or if candidates are supported through a meeting with a variety of people, or whether it's a one-on-one with people in different positions, like the TOSA, part-time mentor, teacher specialist. If you could clarify that a little bit, that'd be great.
Okay. We try to really match the candidate directly to the credential that they're seeking. I think that's still the best approach, but we have not found that to be always, easy. So what we do is we pair them with, we have 2 teacher specialists who's in full release as part of the induction team. That's also new. That's only 2 years ago from Pomona Unified School District. One of them is a special education expertise with special education expertise, and the other is like an elementary. And then for content, we have a group of teacher specialists that are experts in specific content areas. So they help out in terms of being the coach mentor if we can find a coach and mentor in that specific subject area. And so far, we have met it, the needs of our candidates by doing that. So it's almost like a multi-tiered support system. We're ready either way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or a motion? Member Erickson?
Congratulations on a great report. And as my colleagues have noted, it sounds like you're well on your way with the ILP and looking at how you serve your new teachers. And I would like to submit that we approve the overall recommendation that is accreditation with the 7th year report.
Thank you. Motion by Member Erickson, second by Member Tchaikovsky. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you
much.
both. All right, team, we are at item 16, almost on time. Member Hickey.
Before we go to the next one, I just wanted to acknowledge we have a commissioner in the room, Commissioner Kevin Kung. Thank you for joining us. Very nice to have you here. So great. Ida couldn't be here today, so it's nice to have another commissioner here. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. All right, item 16 is the report of the accreditation team to San Diego State University. Is there a recusal? I'll take a recusal. Okay, Administrator, hold on a second. Administrator Erin Sullivan will introduce this item. Joining her at the table are institutional representatives, Dr. Nina Potter, Director of Assessment and Accreditation, Dr. Karen Myers-Bauman, Associate Dean, and joining by video, technology team is lead Dr. Judith Silva. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? We have Member Tchaikovsky, Member Alvarado, and Member Forbes. I see. Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Sullivan? Do we still have a quorum? Yay. All right, Ms. Sullivan, you are up.
That's fantastic. All right, so good afternoon. I am here to introduce the accreditation site visit report for San Diego State University. The site visit occurred back in February on the 24th through the 27th, but as you all know, calendars are very busy, so we are glad to have them here with us in June. As you've seen in the report, SDSU has quite a number of programs, so we had a fairly large team, which was supported by 2 consultants, myself and Miranda Gutierrez, and Miranda could not be with us here today. Miranda and I worked very closely with Dr. Potter in the year prior to the visit to help support her in preparing the institution for the site visit. The site visit itself was a vigorous few days, certainly, but the institution and Dr. Potter in particular are to be commended for the coordination and facilitation of the interviews and their attention to the team's needs and requests for additional information. Dr. Potter was our regular contact throughout the site visit, and I have to take a moment to comment on how impressed I was by the, she's looking nervous, by the cheerfulness and good humor that she came to each and every day of the site visit with. And when you have a 9-member team looking at, a huge number of programs at an institution, to be able to say that your contact for, every day for 24 hours a day showed up with a smile on her face and a laugh in her voice every day, that it was really, really pleasant. The team itself was led by Dr. Judith Silva, who made it look really effortless to guide 9 team members through the process of deliberation, consensus finding, and report writing. That said, however, it was a pretty wonderful team, very collegial, very supportive of each other, and it was my pleasure and Miranda's to work with these individuals and with the institution. And at this time, I will turn over the microphone to Dr. Silva to present the team's findings and any other information.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah? All right, great. So I want to echo Erin's comments about how smoothly and professionally this visit went for our team, and how accommodating and supportive the institution was to helping the team do their work. So I will present the report, the overview of the report. All of the common standards were found to be met. The program standards for all the programs were found to be met. However, there were 2 program standards that were met with concerns. One in the preliminary multiple subject with intern program, and the other in the preliminary single subject with intern program. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. The standards that were not that were met with concerns had to do with preparing candidates toward the mastery of the teaching performance expectations, the TPE, specifically as it related to universal design for learning, multi-tiered systems of support, and working with special populations. Our overall recommendation was based on the fact that all the common standards we found to be met, and all the standards with the programs, with the exception of program standard 2 for the preliminary multiple and single subjects, were met. We recommended accreditation with a follow-up report in the 7th year, specifically to our 7th year report, specifically to address digital literacy, the use of technology, applying universal design for learning, multi-tiered systems of support, and candidate knowledge of students' IEPs and 504s to planning and instruction. So those were things that were specific to the 2 program standards that were met with concerns. I really want to thank Erin and Miranda for their guidance in this process with this large team on this campus that was beyond impressive in every possible way. It really reflected the culture of the entire institution, the way that they run their teacher preparation and educator preparation programs, with professionalism, with a research base, and with a real focus on student success. That was remarkable. So I do want to thank the team, the Common Standards reviewers, Michael Kotar and June Hetzel, and all of our program reviewers. Some were new, some were experienced, and that's what made this team so awesome, because it was just such a collaborative effort in every way. Our more experienced reviewers were so supportive of our newer reviewers, and our newer reviewers brought perspectives that many of us didn't really think of in such depth. So it was just a really pleasant team to be a part of. So I want to thank the team. I want to thank Nina and her whole team, and Dean Barry Chung, who was fabulous, and everyone else at the institution. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that terrific report. It sounds like it was a fun visit. That's great. All right. At this time, we'd like to call upon the institution to make a few comments. I'll remind you that this is not an opportunity to debate the findings of the visit, but to enlighten us as to all the wonderful fun that you had and what you learned.
I just want to start by saying I took my position on January 1st and walked straight in to the visit, and I also was so extremely impressed with Dr. Potter and the work that she did. We were so thankful for the team, and Nina could keep smiling because of the way the team interacted with us. They were so clearly there to be supportive and to be helpful, staff and the volunteer team. So we really want to say thank you for all of that. And I do publicly want to say Nina's amazing, and you may not have her. She is ours, and we are keeping her. I think that there are several things that we've started doing as we learned some of the things from the visit, and I'm going to let Nina talk a little bit about those, and we may do a little tag teaming as we tell you about some of the efforts that have occurred since the visit.
Thank you. And I just will say thank you as well to the whole team that came to visit. As someone who's done a number of visits myself, I know how time consuming it is. I know how much work and thoughtfulness goes into it, and we really appreciate the time, effort, and the feedback that we received. So thank you. So in terms of things that have happened since the visit, focusing on the standard that was met with concerns. In terms of using technology, we have a room, a classroom, technology-based classroom, that has a lot of the tools, technology-based tools that the local districts said they use, including things like the smart boards, tablets, and also software that they say they use regularly. But we have noted that faculty aren't using it. Some faculty use it more than others. And so as part of our plan moving forward, we have a committee looking at how we can make sure that all faculty members, or at least more faculty members, so that every student has opportunities to be in that classroom can happen. So that's one of the things we're doing. In terms of working with special needs, we have a lot of exciting things happening right now. We have some support from 4 different grants where the departments, we have basically 3 departments that teach, 2 that teach multiple subjects and a single subject, and then a department that does a specialist. And the grants are for them to collaborate together. And so one of the things we're doing is developing actually a common rubric for student teaching. And so all students, multiple subjects, single subject, and ed specialists will have some common rubrics that they're evaluated on with input from faculty from all departments. And we're going to work on getting reliability for those rubrics. So, and again, we have some grant support to help us with this. They're also talking about co-teaching so that all students across programs get faculty across all the departments and not just faculty from a single department. So we're planning on doing some co-teaching. And then for both of those areas, we're also relooking at our ESA, our embedded signature assignments, and looking at all the rubrics and making sure that those TPEs that were met with concerns, that rubrics for those are beefed up. So no matter, again, which classroom, no matter who your structure is for math methods, let's say, that embedded signature assignment says you will be evaluated on these rubrics that teach those TPEs. Make sense?
So when she talks about co-teaching, for example, it will go across programs and across departments. And so special ed teachers going into the general education classroom to really help those students understand more about the IEPs and the 504s. This is something that was started before the team came for their visit, and we hope will be reflected very quickly as we're moving through. It's really exciting for us to have 4 different funding sources that are helping us, including the Gates Foundation, that are helping us, really look at pulling together these different departments where at most other universities, they're all in one department. So that's definitely one of the strengths and challenges that we have at SDSU, that I'm very impressed with how the faculty are looking to make that smoother and more cohesive.
Terrific. Thank you. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the Committee on Accreditation. Does anybody have something they'd like to share? All right. Member Balatayo.
I'm really, I think this is really cool, and I just want to learn more. Tell me more about your SDSU Community Reading Clinic. And I like that there's this, the glass cubicles and how you're providing feedback to your candidates about that. Tell me more, please.
That's what we use by the reading program most. And unfortunately, neither one of us are really work closely with that department, but I do know the School of Teacher Education has invited all faculty there for faculty meeting stuff. And so it's an area that's being used a lot, but I actually don't have that much information on it.
What would you like to know? Maybe
yeah.
I'd like to know more about how, because there's so much emphasis on providing in-time feedback.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yes.
that was the piece that I really want to learn more about, because I think it's really valuable in providing feedback as it is happening, not like 2 days later if it's right now, and then you can adjust according to feedback and then go on with the rest of your day and see how that ends up.
Right. So we have a director of the Literacy Center who then works with teachers and training them how to do the observations while the candidates are in a room that is set up beautifully, I think. I was very impressed when I went and saw the site. And so the children are working directly with a candidate. There is a teacher coach who is watching, and then immediately they will meet and talk about it. They can even pull the student out and say, hey, you know, maybe this isn't going so well, or they can come in and join the candidate, which I think is I think that's unique.
Yes.
Those same cubicles get used for our clinical work in our college. And so to think about doing reading the same way we think about doing clinical training, I think is unique and fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish I'd gone.
Just piggybacking on that, there seems like there's quite a bit of innovation happening on campus, and two of the things that came up was the addition of the self-study course. It was really, I thought, very thoughtful, in that the candidates self-rate their work against the commission standards. Also, the emphasis on self-reflection and self-care. And we talk about self-care. We say, okay, be sure to get your run in or eat right, but really to make that part of your program, I think is fantastic. Any other comments or a motion to accept the recommendation of the site visit team by member Balatayo? I need a second. By co-chair. Do I? Yes. Okay. Sorry. And a second by co-chair Fraley. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and congratulations and thanks for a great report, team lead. All right. Have a great afternoon. Safe travels. Is that it for our site visits? I believe it is. Did we skip any, miss any? Nope. I think that actually takes us to item 17, which we do have somebody joining us. What do you call a number that won't move? A Roman number.
Ignore the stage is level. The drool comes out of both sides of the drummer's mouth. Sorry. Huh? How do you know when the stage is level? Because the drool comes.
We can go to item 18. Okay, item 9 is the notification of institutions not in compliance with accreditation timelines. Analyst Michelle Bernardo will present this action item. I don't think anybody needs to recuse themselves. Ms. Bernardo, will you begin?
Yes. Okay, so this item provides information on institutions who have not complied with the timelines established in the accreditation cycle. Specifically, we're going to be talking about preconditions and the annual date of submission. In the table that was provided in the item for the preconditions that were due on March 31st, there were 2 institutions who had not submitted the preconditions, which was Lawndale Elementary School District and Temple City Unified School District, which both of the institutions had decided to withdraw their program, and they were included in the item previous to this, and I think it's item 7 now. So we've withdrawn their program. And then the second table, we've decided as we're moving into the second year of the annual data submission, we'll be including information and reporting on institutions who haven't submitted the required reports that we've asked and also this particular request, we asked the institutions to create their program decks for the reports that are due in August 15th. We've asked them to create the report decks by March 31st. So Cheyenne Jones, who's actually been working with the institutions and with technical support, has been really helpful with getting those report decks in. We have one institution who has not created the report deck, Bard College, but they ensure us that they will be getting that in by July 5th. So that's the end of the report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No questions? All right, this can be an information item, and thank you so much for that update.
Thank you.
All right. 18? 17? Okay, all right. Is the discussion of draft alignment matrix with the Association for Advancing Quality and Educator Preparation. Director Terry Clark will introduce this item. Joining her by video technology is Dr. Mark Lacio Peterson, President and CEO, and Linda McKee, Chief Operating Officer. Ms. Clark, will you begin, please?
Happy to. Thank you. So this agenda item is bringing AQUIP back to you. We gave you an update about a year ago on AQUIP, and even an update, I think, this spring after we went to one of their meetings. And what this item does is it brings you the first draft of an alignment matrix. Appendix A is fairly important because it's the 4 AQUIP standards. And there's Dr. LaSalle Peterson. Hello, Mark. Glad you're joining us.
Welcome, Dr. Peterson.
Can you hear us? Good. So in Appendix A, you'll see the 4 AQUIP standards, and they actually have a pretty interesting process right now in that standards 1 and 2 are expected to be met. 1 and 2, 1 and 3. Mark, standards 1 and 3 or 1 and 3? 1 and 3 are standards that you have to be meeting those to be getting the accreditation from AQUIP, whereas standards 2 and 4 are a little bit more aspirational, and they have a little bit of a more flexible approach to those. You'll notice standard 2 is all about program completer competence and growth. It is all post-program. Some of standard 1 is, but standard 1 also does have candidates in it. And standard 3 is the one that you'll see when we go to Appendix B, is most like our common standards. It has to do with, does the institution have the infrastructure to offer educator prep, which is what our common standards are about here in California. Their standard 4 is a lot like our standard 5 in many ways, but it also still has more of a focus on data and post-program. So if you would go ahead and go to Appendix B, staff developed an initial alignment matrix. We shared it with the leadership at AQUIP and asked them to provide us some feedback. And so what you're seeing here now in this matrix, I was hoping kind of we might be able to go line by line and you could say, yes, we agree with what's in the first row or second row. We don't know that that's true. To remind and to let members who are newer know, if an alignment matrix has been developed and if the committee adopts it, it defines that if a program meets the AQUIP standards, they will have met the aligned commission standards. And so this kind of a document is very important when an institution is considering doing national accreditation. Dr. LaSalle Peterson, did I misstate anything, or would you like to add any more context before we start going through the table? Can't hear you. You're muted. Bottom left-hand corner, usually.
Sorry about that, everyone.
There.
I had also called in on the phone because I'm in a conference hotel where the connection might not be as good, but I'll hang the phone up and just trust the computer to do the work. Thank you so much, Terry. And the only thing I would add is that in that second column with AQUIP expectations, even though some things are noted as not specifically addressed, that was the initial look, and the green tinted text was sort of added in our conversation afterwards. I hope that's a fair way of characterizing that, of showing where there is additional alignment there.
So if it's okay with members, could we kind of walk through the chart? So the very first section of Common Standard 1 is that the institution has the infrastructure in place to operate effective programs. that I think is addressed by AQUIP. It's not as specific as all the things below, but we have all the rows below to look at it. So if we brought this back to you in the future, and the process normally would be after you have input on this, we would go out to the field. We would go to institutions in California and say, whether or not you're interested in AQUIP, how do you see these standards? We'd say, do you see this aligned? Do you see anything missing from the commission standards if an institution meets AQUIP? So my comment would be that in the very first row, we pretty much see that as aligned. And California entity would not need to do anything additional for that top row. The second row talks about the research-based vision. It talks about some coherence. It talks about all preparation programs. It talks about the vision with California Public Schools. And this is not specifically addressed with AQUIP. It is hinted at, as it shows in green, in the curriculum in Standard 3 and partly in Standard 4. But my general thought is that sentence is not really addressed fully by AQUIP. We would leave that as, yes, the institution has to do something more. Same thing with the third row down, that the institution actively involves faculty, instructional personnel, and relevant stakeholders in the organization, coordination, and decision-making. Because when we have a team go out, they actually are looking, faculty, personnel, relevant stakeholders, they're looking at organization, coordination, and decision-making. So they're looking at a matrix of 3 by 3, looking to see that 9 things are happening. And I would say that that is not as specifically addressed by AQUIP. The next one, that they ensure faculty, instructional personnel regularly and systematically collaborate. Effective program practices include dynamic, mutually beneficial partnerships with stakeholders. That's really a decision you would have to make. Do you believe that what you see in AQUIP is adequate for what you see on the left-hand side, or do you think that a California institution should have to do more to meet the Commission's common standard there? And I'm really looking for your feedback on that. Yeah.
I mean, I like how ours specifies colleagues in P12 settings, college and university, and that's not stated otherwise. Mm-hmm. So it could be that you would have partnerships that don't include those folks.
So we have done this before where we actually highlight only specific sections. So what I could do is we could say colleagues in P12 settings, college, university units, and members of the broader educational community. That could be highlighted, and we could say everything's fine as long as you can show us you've hit all those people. Okay, that's helpful. The next one down, the bottom row on page 6, the institution provides the unit with sufficient resources for the effective operation. Again, the AQUIP standard, it's implied in their Standard 3, but is not as specific. So would you like me to look for the specificity and highlight? Yes, Member Forbes.
Yes, it's come up even today, and it's come up in previous site visits how important that resource question can be in helping the institution to leverage change and pointing out to the institution as a whole entity what needs to change.
Okay. I don't know that this will come forward again at your August meeting since it's a technology meeting. It would definitely come forward again at your October meeting where we'll bring this back to you with edits. And also we'll probably get it out for the field review kind of at the same time because we have some institutions that are really talking about AQUIP and might be interested in moving towards AQUIP. Member Tchaikovsky.
I think the specificity of those funding destinations, mm-hmm. coordination, mission, advisement, curriculum, PD, like those are really important to break out and identify specifically.
Perfect. You'll see that highlighted next time and you'll be able to say, yep, I need them all highlighted, or no, we think AQUIP does enough with this one or that one. So on to page 7, the unit leadership has the authority and the support to address the needs of all the programs and considers the interest of each program. Again, the AQUIP is much less specific.
Hmm? Again, speaking as an institution as well, as part of an institution as well, I think it provides a lot of important information for the entire unit that I would hate to see be lost.
Okay. Then recruitment and faculty development efforts support hiring and retention of faculty who represent and support diversity and excellence. So if you'll see standard 4, second aspect. So if you wanted to go back up to Appendix A, standard 4, the second aspect, the program that seeks to meet local state educator workforce needs and seek to diversify the educator workforce through candidate recruitment and support. So part of that is there, but you see the aspects are underneath the standard.
Was that for just candidates, or did it include faculty? Sorry,
It really looks more at the candidate level than the faculty level.
We want to include the faculty.
So we really want to keep that.
Absolutely.
As separate. Then the next one has to be employing, assigning, retaining the qualified people to teach the courses, provide the PD. This really has to go with all of this. And again, the note there says it's somewhat standard 4 with state requirements, but I think having heard you mention a couple others, you probably like the specificity of what's in the common standard. I'm seeing nodding. Okay, then the last part of Common Standard 1, the unit monitors a credential recommendation process that is not addressed by AQUIP, so staff would recommend that that stays to be something that a California institution would have to show us independent of AQUIP. Okay. Moving to Common Standard 2, candidates are recruited and supported in all educator preparation programs to ensure their success. And this is, if you look at Standard 3, the fourth aspect, so if you go up to the Appendix B, Standard 3 is on page 4, the fourth aspect, enacts admissions, monitoring, and support processes linked to candidate success as part of a quality assurance system aligned to state requirements and professional standards. Think that's okay? Perfect. Then moving down for accepts applicants for its educator preparation programs based on clear criteria, multiple measures, candidate qualifications. And the note there, you'll say it addresses it to some extent, but it does not require multiple measures. So one option here is I could highlight specifically multiple measures and say that the rest of it is addressed by AQUIP, but a California institution would have to show us multiple measures. Got it?
Just back on the first row of Standard 2, the recruitment aspect. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's nothing mentioned about recruitment in the parallel.
I will highlight recruitment as something that a California institution still has to do. This is exactly the level of detail I needed. I mean, we put the table together, but we really need to hear from you on this one. Then we're going down to, I think, appropriate information and personnel are clearly identified, and this is stated. It's not in AQUIP, so we'll show it as having to be met. And then the last part of Standard 2, evidence regarding progress in meeting the competency and performance expectations is used to guide clearly defined processes in place to identify and support those candidates. Consistent with Standard 3, the fourth aspect, which is the one we already looked at, I think, which says admission, monitoring, and support processes linked to candidate success as part of a quality assurance system aligned to state requirements and professional standards. So a question for you is, does that seem to really address the essence of that element? Member Forbes.
Sorry, I'm trying to scroll back.
I know, it's maybe this wasn't the best way to do the item. Sorry.
Maybe not on an on an iPad. I'm just having more trouble. It's a limitation of my own technology. It seems to me that the CTC, the California Common Standards, emphasize a little bit more of the support as opposed to just the monitoring.
Okay. But support. Okay. All right, I think we're going to see when we get to Common Standard 3 here, there's a lot more similarity, and a lot of that was in the table. So the first sentence about designing and implementing a planned sequence, coursework and clinical that they develop and demonstrate to educate and support P-12 students. So effective program practices, consistent offering of coherent curricula, high quality, diverse clinical experiences. And they have a separate sentence as one of the aspects that they do say you have to focus on the state requirements. So even though it doesn't explicitly say they're California's P-12 students and California standards, in talking with Dr. LaSalle Peterson, I now understand they will be holding for that because it is a state requirement. So in many ways, I kind of think this one is pretty addressed. Any disagreement? Okay. Okay, the next part of 3, the unit and its programs offer a high-quality course of study focused on knowledge and skills, beginning educators, grounded in research and effective practices. Coursework is integrated with field experiences, a cohesive, comprehensive program that allows them to learn, practice, and demonstrate require the competencies of the credentials. So this is where their program standard 1 addresses this, and in some ways part of their program standard 3 also. It's really a matter and right up front, high-quality clinical placements are required, but the connection between coursework to fieldwork is not as specific. Okay? Mark, can you talk to us about AQUIP's expectations about being grounded in current research?
Yes, when we, in Standard 1, in thinking about content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge, the expectation is that it is current, up to date, and supported by research. Of course, when we go back and look at our language, we, of course, might find some places where we could specify that to a greater degree. So I can say that's the spirit of the expectation, but if it were highlighted to ensure acknowledgement there, that would certainly enrich the dialogue.
Okay. I will highlight that for us for the next time. Anything else in that large, because that's kind of a meaty item there. Okay. Then moving on to the top of the next page, page 9, the unit and all of its programs collaborate with their partners regarding the criteria, selection of clinical personnel, site-based supervisors, school sites as appropriate. And they talk about in program standard 3, collaboration to ensure quality clinical experience is required in the second aspect, but it's not to this level of detail. Yes, Member Forbes.
So one question I have about the way that the AQUIP is organized, is it looking at a unit and its programs, or is it kind of subsuming them into a single entity? Because one thing here is that it's not only the programs that are collaborating, but it's the unit at the unit level. So that would be one thing that I would think is perhaps we would want to make sure stays in the California responses.
All right, so Dr. LaSalle Peterson, can you speak to us a little bit about AQUIP? And I know it looks at the educator preparation programs at the entity. Is it also looking at the entity's infrastructure in addition to the programs?
AQUIP looks at the entity as sort of consisting of its programs, and so looks at the two in a little more combined way than some other frameworks have done. So within looking at the unit, though, there's always the insistence that everything be broken out by program to ensure that each licensure program or each certificate program is adequately resourced, is adequately monitored, is based on current research and practice, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure if that addresses it adequately, but the idea is whatever is true and expected of the whole is expected in each of the parts with relation to the collaboration, to the to the work with the partners and to the quality of the clinical placements. I'm not sure if that quite gets at the question, but I hope it does.
Does that help the members guide me as to what you would like highlighted as still needed to be met by California?
Well, it just seems to me from some of the visits I've been on, for example, that you might see individual programs within an institution that had a strong collaboration with stakeholders, but that might not feed into the unit system, or maybe at the unit level they have a system, but it may even bypass some of the programs. I've just seen those two types of examples.
So let me highlight the unit in there to make sure that gets covered. Mm-hmm. Member Riggs.
Also, the specific language of clinical personnel, site-based supervisors, and school sites. Because you can have a school site that has issues and have a beautiful classroom and teacher, but we want the whole school site to be a healthy place for the candidate.
Got it. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Alvarado.
So on that one, on page 4, second bullet of standard 3, it reads, develops, implements quality clinical experiences where appropriate in the context of documented and effective partnerships with P12 schools and districts. To me, still doesn't quite provide the level of detail, like selection of clinical personnel and so on, but it does acknowledge that it's not just a classroom, but it's a school site, a school district that you form partnerships with.
So is that okay? Okay. The next one has to do with a lot about the issue of diversity, school climate, research-based strategies, improving teaching and learning. I apologize. Yes.
In there, but criteria selection of clinical personnel, I think that specificity, that it's not just people playing nice with each other, that's collaboration, but it's people who are qualified to play specific roles in the system are vetted as such.
Super. I will highlight that one for your discussion next time. Moving down to the second box on this page, it really has to do with the topics of diversity, school climate, and all of that. And the standards 1 and 2 both talk about culturally responsive practice. So the question is that specific enough for you, or do you like some of the specificity in the common standard language?
I like the word experience. They experience the issues of diversity. They provided that.
Member Forbes.
And I think also the specificity of school climate, because culturally responsive practice could be limited to a classroom and not necessarily at the level of the school.
Okay.
And the research-based practices, implement, so experience and then implement research-based practices connotes action to me.
Got it. The site-based supervisors, nothing specific is in the AQIP other than the fact that state requirements must be met. Now, a certified requirement is a basic one. It's kind of a precondition issue. Experience in teaching the specified services or performing it, that's really your call. Do you think? Commissioner
Just
Alvarado.
a clarification question.
Mm-hmm.
As we're going through these, is it to provide feedback to AQIP so that they may possibly enhance, revise some of their standards, or?
Of course, we cannot tell AQIP what to do. But I heard Dr. LaSalle Peterson say here that, whoa, there's more specificity. We might want to think about that. The feedback for here also is that when I bring this back to you, it will be highlighted, and it will be along the lines of the highlighted language is not adequately addressed by AQIP, and a California institution must still address it. So it's doing both. I'm taking notes for highlighting, and I'm pretty sure AQIP's listening.
So on that end, I'd say just to consider in terms of where the field is now with regards to culturally responsive, to make it culturally sustaining.
Ooh, good point. Okay, so the next three, site-based supervisors, the process and criteria, and the site-based supervisors will be getting trained. None of those three are addressed at the level of specificity. The question would be, do you think the fact that they say meet state requirements is adequate for any of the three?
So when an institution pursues this, they would have the crosswalk. And the crosswalk, my question is, does the crosswalk make it clear then, because they're next to each other, that okay, we have to meet the left-hand side? It seems like that would be true, right?
Yes.
So then that should be sufficient to just, it seems like that's okay then. When it says state-specific requirements, then that should say to the institution that we have to meet the left-hand column here. Is that not right or not?
So what will happen is the right-hand column will actually disappear from this document. And what will be is I will be highlighting in the left-hand column and everything in one way or the other. Say everything that's highlighted is been addressed by AQIP fully. So anything that's highlighted as AQIP, you don't have to do anything. Anything that's not highlighted, you must address. And what I was saying is the very first of these three, that supervisors must be certified and experienced in the teaching. That is in a precondition for almost every single program. That is a very clear state requirement, I think. So I think that one you might want to say, hey, that one's fine. Now, the process and criteria result in the selection of site-based supervisors who provide effective and knowledgeable support. That's nowhere else, really, I don't think. And the third one also of trained in supervision, oriented to the role, evaluated and recognized. Again, that doesn't seem to be anywhere else to me. So I'm seeing some nodding. So that we could say the first one's okay, but the second and third of that section would be you have to meet these still. The next one down, all programs effectively implement and evaluate clinical fieldwork and clinical practice. They're standard 4. The system of improvement, I think I agree with this. It really does address that. So I would identify it as addressed. But then the next one down, for each program the unit offers, candidates have significant experience in schools where the curriculum aligns. That's not specifically addressed, I don't think. So I would leave that as they have to show it. Go ahead and look at Common Standard 4. Our Common Standard 4 has those 4 big pieces, and I really think that their requirement in many ways addresses it. Do you see anything missing from in our section that we would want to still say a California program has to do?
Is there an issue again with the word unit because they're addressing program practices rather than both?
Okay. Other ideas that and again, you will get to see this again. This is not the only time you get to see it. Okay, Dr. LaSalle Peterson, could you speak about AQIP's expectation? They have to have a system of improvement, but how often does that improvement system have to operate? Can it operate once every 6 years, or what does it have to do?
The expectation is, of course, that the system is operating continually. It's not much of a system if it doesn't keep running. So the expectation is, and I apologize if there was a question before you turned to me. I wasn't able to hear the question or the specifics of it. So I'll just answer that. The expectation is that it's operating continuously. And of course, I wouldn't say that the annual report will include every element of the continuous operation, but of course, the annual report will be a way of checking on maintaining meeting standards. So would be touched on there, but that is the expectation that it would be continuously operating.
The specific question the member had was about the second idea in Common Standard 4 about the unit and its programs regularly assess their effectiveness. Now that you see all three about the...
Yeah. Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the expectation regularly really means it's a continuous quality assurance process. So that's the expectation in AQIP. And one of the things that we ask providers to do is to do an audit of their quality assurance system. That, of course, the audit is done only as part of the review cycle. But in doing that audit, they're looking back and seeing that the system has been operating. So, the expectation is that it's continuously operating.
I will work on this one, and we will have something for you when we bring it forward. Oh, Ms. Hickey, yes.
Well, just with all of them, I feel like our institutions, this causes confusion to our institutions anyway, the unit versus program. And so then the unit is just completely absent from what I'm reading here. Now, I'm not going back to the document, but I'm just concerned about the unit role.
Excellent. Got it. Cheryl.
Well, my point here is, I think for the most part, they're generally very similar, but the level of specificity about the kinds of data that we expect to see is more explicated in ours. You know, the candidate must include candidate and program completer data, which it might be there. I just don't see it in the words there, but so it might be just the level of specificity.
Okay. I will work on that one.
Mark, do you want to respond?
Thank you. Yes, I was just going to say, in terms of candidate, it's partly a question of the organization, because for Standard 1, it's very clear that candidate and completer and employer data has to be a part of the ongoing monitoring of this. So sort of things fall in different buckets in different places, but that multiple perspectives is a very important central part of the system, that those perspectives have to be, that evidence has to be part of the system.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Since AQIP does have a requirement for a rich continuous improvement system, we would be working on an agreement with AQIP. It seems that in the agreement we could specify, related to this idea, is that in California there are specific expectations for sources of data, and that we could actually identify some of those from the standard in that agreement, and then it makes it become a state requirement. So AQIP reviewers would look for it.
And again, maybe this is, I'm just reminded of everything that went down in the first half of today's meeting, where the goal is to provide feedback that's actionable to schools based on these standards. So I'm looking at the last two lines of that first bullet there, when it talks about making appropriate modifications based on findings. Like, I know we talk about continuous improvement, but it almost seems like the way California has engineered that process is different than AQIP's kind of checking in kind of process. This is more of almost like an institutional coaching model. I don't know. To me, that is a strength of our design.
Yeah. Mark, I would say that for our teacher candidates and our administrator candidates, our performance assessments now really require that looking at data, assessing data drives what you do next. And it's the same thing with our programs. We expect that in our continuous improvement model, data is being collected and we specify specific sources, and we expect that that data is being used and modifications are going forward. How does AQIP think about that?
That would match the expectation, and so I think, and I'll just say as a kind of overall comment, the framework we set up for developing agreements with states specifically has a spot to say, if our standards are more general or if there are additional things, here's a place to specify those things so that we do have it covered, so that it's there, so that it's clear. So that's very much the spirit I'm looking at this in. I think when looking at the required elements of data, it might be the case that we could take a look at Standard 1 and say, well, here are the multiple perspectives that are required, and in California that specifically means, and get to a greater level of specificity. My sense is it would be all the same categories of evidence that are required, but in any particular state system, if there are more specific pieces of information, actual names to put on the things, well, then let's put the names on them and say, and in this case, it means, it means this or that. And the implication of a continuous improvement system that's evidence-based, the system does say that they engage in improvement based on the evidence. So if there's a way to express it more directly, or to say, and in the case of California providers, here's what that means, that we would very much welcome adding that, to provide that level of clarity and specificity in the agreement.
Thank you. Moving to Common Standard 5, I really believe both of these are pretty addressed by AQIP. The first one is addressed by AQIP Standard 1, where it talks about candidates and completers need to have the knowledge, skills, abilities, and it also includes by state definition. So I think it really does address that first sentence. And then the second sentence is they're having a positive impact on this. They have this, they actually require, I think, more data than we're requiring to date, although they do know this is an aspiration for many programs, and so they're being fairly open. But in my view, when I looked at both parts of Common Standard 5, I said, I think AQUIP pretty much addresses these. Any thoughts on that? This will let me do an update to this document. We'll get it out to institutions, and we'll get it out for some feedback from the field, and we will be bringing a version to you at a future meeting. As soon as an institution says, yes, we want to work with AQUIP, then we'll be working with an agreement with them, and this all comes through you as part of your responsibility. Thank you so much for your thinking on this item. It's very helpful. Thank you, Dr. LaSalle Peterson, for making time to join us.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate this discussion and have been taking notes and learning from it. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Clark, for the table. That oh, yeah, almost. Almost. Oh. Alrighty. Well, moving on. Thank you. To item 18, which is discussion of potential changes to the initial program review. And Cheryl Hickey will introduce this item. Ms. Hickey, will you begin, please?
Yeah, let me do a time check real quick, though, with Terry, because we had the CAPE person who is available at 2:30. So, okay.
Let's go ahead and start this item, maybe, and while I check.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, boy, then we better do the action items. Okay. Yes, 19 and definitely 22 for sure.
Maybe you should go to those first.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to item 19, which is the adoption of COA meeting dates for 2020. Michelle Bernardo. Yep. We'll introduce this item. Ms. Bernardo, will you begin, please, as soon as you run up to the table?
Hello again. Okay, so item 19 is the adoption of the COA meeting minutes for 2020 year. So you should have a table that has the proposed dates for 2020, and I thought it'd be easier if we just go down the line, starting with February. And if you want to take a moment to pull up your calendars.
January?
February is the first month.
February 2020.
February 2020.
Page 3.
Page 3 of the item. You should have a hard copy at the table.
Oh, really? Nice. Perfect.
And the asterisks are dates that staff preference. Yeah.
And I know you heard from one of the new folks.
Yes.
Check with
February 13th, 14th date would not work.
Does not work for one of our new members. Okay. But all of the other dates work for all of the rest of them. As long as we have a quorum, we can move forward.
Right. So for February, we have two options, February 13th and 14th and February 27th, 28th. Are there any issues with it? Sure.
If it's all about me, I teach on the 13th and the 14th, but on the 27th and the 28th, I could make it.
Okay. Yeah.
Preferences?
Both.
Okay.
Raise your hand for both.
Okay, you're going to count?
So 13, 14?
Yes.
And 27, 28? So like half? It's a split.
Let's do that again.
Okay, 13, 14.
13th, 14th.
Yeah.
Okay, 13th, 14th.
Oh.
27th, 28th.
27th. Okay, 27th, 28th. Okay. So we have for March and April, the staff preference is March 26th, 27th. But we have March 5th, 6th.
And that won't work anymore because we've moved the February date to the week before that.
Right. Let's take out March.
Easter's the 12th.
Yes. Of March.
Is anybody not okay with the 26th, 27th? All right, let's go with staff preference then.
Spring break.
That takes us to May, which May 7th and 8th, is that enough time?
Yep.
May 7th and 8th.
Does anybody have a conflict with May 7th and 8th? Okay. Right.
What about the week before, the April 30th, May 1st?
Can't do it.
Okay.
So,
because I know as we get down to May 21st, 22nd, 28th, 29th, we get into graduations.
Okay, how about May 7th and 8th? Oh, we just did it. Okay. All right. Let's go May 7th and 8th.
7th and 8th?
Yeah.
Okay.
To the K-12 folks, though?
Yeah.
So is that AP testing? Is that what you said, or is that? Okay.
May 7th and 8th.
21st, 22nd? Would that be better,
Does that
Gerard?
work better?
We have testing too, the 7th and 8th, so the 21st, 22nd works better for me. But
that's what I was just going to look at.
Yeah, that's not going to work, is it? Let's go 7th and 8th then.
Okay.
Yeah.
7th and 8th?
Okay. Yeah.
So we're now in June.
25th, 26th, right where we are.
Yep.
June 25th and 26th. Any conflicts with that date? That's the staff preference, but. Yeah. '25th, 26th? Okay, so we're in August. Typically in August we have the video conference meeting. So we have August 11th. It's Tuesday.
We have school starting that week.
Okay.
I would vote for the 3rd.
The 3rd? Does the 3rd work with everyone? For everyone?
You've already
Warning, I will not be here for that meeting, but that's just fine. It's my 30th wedding anniversary, and I am insisting we are going somewhere.
You could zoom in.
August 3rd.
Please do not zoom in.
Okay.
We can cover the meeting for you.
So we're good. August 3rd? Okay. That's a teleconference.
No.
Give us a month. And the last one is November. October, November. So we have October 29th, 30th.
That works for me.
Does
Anybody
that work
got
for
an
everyone?
objection to October 29th?
October 29th and 30th? '29th and 30th for
Correct.
yes. Oh. Oh.
Need an actual motion.
Okay.
We could certainly make it to Friday if that's the will of the group. We have no problem with that. I think in the past what we've heard is that it's harder to travel on Friday afternoons back. But it's entirely up to you guys. We hold those 2 dates, and if you'd rather do it on Friday, we could do it on Friday.
Some people have to, no, they have to teach. Like if you're teaching a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, it's really hard to take. By 2.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, Michelle, could you reiterate the
Sure.
dates for us, and then we can take action on this
Sure.
item? Ms. Tchaikovsky.
So February, we have February 27th and 28th. For March, we have March 26th and 27th. May 7th and 8th. June 25th and 26th. August 3rd. And October 29th and 30th.
Okay, do we have a second? Member Riggs? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Michelle. All right, that takes us to the last action item, which is nomination and election of co-chairs for 2019-20. Ms. Hickey, will you introduce this item, please?
Yes.
We have somebody on the screen. Okay, just checking.
Hi, Gary. Can you hear us? Great. Okay, we have one action item we have to do right before. Hopefully you're okay. All right, so we're a little behind on, last year we got a little behind on our nomination and election, so I'm trying to get us back in the right time frame according to the COA procedures manual. So if we act today, then it brings us back in. So normally routinely we have 2 chairs, as you know, one K-12 and one representative from the post-secondary education community. I'm going to open the nominations one at a time. The COA members should nominate one or more of your peers to serve in that capacity. The person has to be willing to serve. So make sure that's what we'll make sure. And then I will close the nominations. I will give the nominees a chance to say a word or two, and then you will all vote individually. I'll do them separately. And just for your information, in the committee's procedures manual, section 202 of the manual states that no member of COA shall be elected to the office of co-chair for more than 2 one-year terms. You have within your power the ability to suspend your own procedures manual, but we need that as an actual vote. So that needs to actually be explicit. So right now, like I said, the provision can be overturned. So Bob has served 1 term, so he's eligible for a second one should he desire and should somebody nominate him. Anna has served 3. Last time you did suspend your procedures manual, and then that would happen again today if that were the case. But I think that is probably it. I'll do the IHE person first, and then followed by the K-12 person. So any questions before we start? Sounds good. Okay. I'm opening the nominations. Yes. Okay.
Those great jokes. But first, we need to have a motion to suspend the procedures manual.
No, we don't. Not for Bob, because he's eligible for a second term.
Good. Yay.
So not for Bob. And so are there do you accept, first of all, the nomination? Okay, you willing. And then do we have any other nominations? Okay, I close the nomination. And all those in favor of Bob being the IHE co-chair? Yeah, all right. Great. All right, Bob, congratulations. Oh, I didn't ask you if you wanted to say a few words, Bob.
What's the definition of an optimist? Oh, I'm sorry. Percussionist with a cell phone. Thank you. I do accept the nomination. I really, no, we haven't voted. Do we vote?
Yeah, we voted.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really enjoy working with this, and a number of years I got involved starting just as a reviewer and worked my way through the system, and then Gay eventually dragged me in to be one of the site review teams, and I really enjoyed the experience, and a lot to kind of echo what Deb and Suzanne also said. I feel that you bring much more to me than I bring to you in learning along the way, and every time I go home, I just talk about with my friends about the meeting, not the content, but just the quality of the people that work here. And though there's always turnover, the consistency remains. And just the professionalism and the dedication and the hard work of the staff, it's just really quite remarkable. I don't see that level of engagement and working for the good of the cause from either the other committees that I work with or other staffs that I do here. And this really is the highlight of what I do during the year. So thank you so much. Great vote of confidence. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
If I may, just for this occasion, I came prepared with my own riddle for you.
Yes,
That maybe you can take back with you.
Sure.
It's not musical related, but I know how to make it musically related.
Okay.
Why did the chicken cross the playground?
I don't know.
To get to the other slide.
I get it. All right.
I like that.
Thanks, Aaron.
I think you could change it musically to why did the chicken cross the band room? To get to the other slide whistle?
That's good. That's good. Thanks,
She's
Aaron.
trying.
I will steal that.
All right, so moving on, I would like to open the nominations for the K-12 representative as the COH co-chair. Do I have any nominations? All right. Okay, we have a second. So let's vote on whether or not to. Would you accept?
Yes. I did not expect that. So thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. And so we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor of suspending? Aye. Okay. Okay. We have now suspended. Now we will vote. Do we have any other nominations? Thank you. Thank you. Keep me on track here. Anybody else? I know. No other nominations? Okay, so I'm closing the nominations, and now a vote on electing Anna Moore as co-chair. Yes. All those in favor? Okay, and that motion passes. Anna, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you. I'm not going to be long-winded. It's a blast working with this group and Bob as my co-chair and our wonderful CTC team. You're amazing. Our professional services division. And any feedback, this will be the last time that I will do this. I think there are other people that need a turn. And I think part of the reason that we have only 2 years is so that there is turnover and change in thought. However, the historical knowledge that I have with regards to all the work we've done, I hope brings something to the table that will be additive this year. And again, if you have 2 cents to send my way for how you might want to change things up with the way I do my job or we do our job, absolutely drop me an email. Or give me a call. I'd be happy to hear from you.
So as a new person here, I watch with respect the way you facilitate these meetings, both of you, and the way it's professional and even-handed and consistent and according to the rule, and yet very kind of compassionate. And I think that that's something I've come to appreciate from both of you, not to mention trombone jokes.
The discussion of the CAPE-related issues, Director Terry Clark will present this item. Joining her by video technology is Gary Railsback, Vice President of CAPE. Ms. Clark, will you begin, please?
Thank you. So while at the NASDAQ meetings in Denver, I went to the AQUIF session. I went to the CAPE session. I went to all the accreditation sessions. And so I try to bring back information for you. And Gary agreed he would be on the meeting with us. So one of the first things here, we already told you this had passed, but we put a PSA out on this, but the CBEST study was accepted by CAPE. It is in place now on their webpage and ours, so that's good news. We are going to need to redo our agreement with CAPE. Originally, even though we signed it and set it up as a 7-year agreement, and Gary can probably give us more of the background for this, but they've asked that the agreements be shorter now, more like 3 or 4 years. And so Cheryl's going to be starting the process with CAPE of how do we want California and CAPE to work together. Anything else about that, Gary?
I think probably the biggest reason coming up, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
The biggest reason coming up is the advanced standards. So when the current agreements were developed, it was all focused on initial teacher programs. And now as we move through advanced, there needs to be some adjustments made to that as far as team size. And Terry and I have already spent a lot of time determining which programs are going to be covered in the advanced. But I think that's probably the basic reason.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
One of the issues that I think we need to talk about going forward as we develop the new agreement is whether or not we want to continue joint visits or go concurrent. I've heard some feedback from institutions that they would like us to think about possibly going concurrent rather than joint. We're not sure of what the implications of all that would be. So when I am in DC in September, I asked to meet with CAPE staff to talk about what that means, because we've always had a joint site visit.
And we've actually only hosted one joint CAPE visit this past March. Cheryl will be facilitating one in the fall, and I'll be facilitating one in February. So by the time we have those 3 visits done, we think we'll have a much better understanding of that. Joint visits made an awful lot of sense when we were in the NCATE world, and everything overlapped except for 4 sentences of the common standards. A lot less overlaps now, and CAPE has a little bit of a different focus in some areas with their data focus, especially which was what our common standard 5 on program impact. Ours is much more flexible still than CAPE's.
Yes.
Can you explain to us, this may seem like a simple question, but the difference between joint and concurrent?
A joint visit, the teams are actually integrated and they work together, and there are California people on the national team, and there's group decision making. Concurrent is really that definition of parallel play. The 2 things are happening at the same time, at the same place. We have 2 different team rooms, and there's a little bit of crossover, and they might attend some interviews, but really it's both processes are rolling out at the same time, but not in a joint manner, is how I describe it. But Cheryl will get lots more on that in at the September meeting in DC at CAPE. Then we gave you a little bit of an update with work CAPE is doing with CHIA, the Council for Higher Education. They're making good progress on that. And we gave you also some more information on this idea of stipulations and areas for improvement and which one is more serious. A single area for improvement is nowhere near as serious as a stipulation. And so that's somewhat similar to your process. We talked about the partnership agreement, and then we also gave you a lot of information in the appendices on what has happened over the last couple of years with CAPE visits. So if anyone is of interest, how are the institutions doing on the visits? Gary made the point that although CAPE Standard 3.2 has been the one that's been known as to be such a problem for a lot of institutions, really for the most part, there haven't been hardly any findings. There have only been 2 times that an AFI really was placed specifically on Standard 3.2. So that has not seemed to be a big issue. I didn't want to go over all of this. I know it's late on a long day. Did you have any questions about anything specifically that we included in the agenda item? Gary, any other context you want to share? I know you've seen the item and you understand CAPE quite well there.
Yeah, I also understand California pretty well. I would like to say something about the joint or the concurrent teams. I think the value, my first national teams were in Kentucky and California. And when you have two people on your team that are from California, it helps the rest of the team to help them understand the unique features of California. For instance, nobody in the rest of the country calls a license to be an elementary teacher multiple subject. There are lots of things that are unique to California, and I think that's really beneficial for you to have two local people on the team. I've done 17 visits in other states, and I've never done a concurrent. I've only done Cape only or joint. And so, it's obviously your choice, but I think having been on the Loyola Marymount visit this spring, it was beneficial to have Joe Birdsell and, other people from California on that team, helping to make the decision from the California perspective.
I have a question. What might be the issues around the 3 or 4 year cycle that Cape's leaning towards, as well as the, we have 2 California members and you're proposing just having one. I don't know. Those are the 2 things that are coming up for me.
So CAPE isn't actually changing the cycle of their accreditation activities. That would stay in concurrence with our 7-year cycle. They're just changing the duration of their agreement with states. So the state would have to renegotiate its agreement every 3 or 4 years. So it really doesn't impact our site visits at all. The site visits can still roll forward. I think it gives us a more frequent time to talk together to see, is this working for you? Is this not working for you? And then the second question, I lost it somehow.
One
already.
person from California versus 2.
And this is something we're just starting to think about. And Cheryl, because of the LMU visit and how much work there is still in the common standards for a team member to look at, and CAPE is now placing more people on the team. And Cheryl has some specifics about the Chapman visit already. And it just seems like it could get to be a pretty big team.
That's exactly right. So there now is a lot more in our not aligned column that we need somebody dedicated to looking at that not aligned part that is California focused and probably not necessarily as many people as we've had in the past on the what used to be the NCAPE team, but now the CAPE team. We've only had one CAPE visit. So in that, we sort of overloaded the team on the one coming up now. We've decided to try the other approach, and we'll be able to compare the 2 and see how that works. So it's a matter of what standards need to be looked at and the division of work on a team, pretty much.
So that can remain flexible then. We're not going to have to say, this is just one person forever moving
exactly.
forward. We can say, okay,
right
depending
now,
on the amount of work that's entailed.
Right.
That call.
Right. And hopefully by the time we get to writing the new agreement, we'll have a better sense of where we think it should be. Right now, we're sort of just still trying to figure it out.
Okay. Anything else on this one? No action is required. Mr. Railsback, thank you for joining us today, and I'm sure we'll see you back here again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
He's actually retiring from CAPE in next week. So.
Oh, well, we've got an opening on the next site visit. All right. Well, congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah, I'm actually retiring in 5 minutes. I'm taking the day off tomorrow.
Wow.
That's
well,
awesome.
It's appropriate that you ended with us, right?
Okay.
With your
Yeah,
California
exactly.
folks.
Right.
Glad to
All
help
right.
you out, Cheryl. Anytime.
Thank you,
All right.
Gary.
Okay.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Goodbye.
Bye, Gary. Happy
Goodbye.
retirement. This is Katie.
Oh, hi, Katie. Thank you.
So I think that leaves us with just one item, which is we have item 20, 18 and 20. Thank you for your assistance there. 18 is the discussion of potential changes to the initial program review. Cheryl Hickey will introduce this item. Ms. Hickey, will you begin, please?
Right. So this item says that handouts will be distributed, but I do not have any handouts to distribute, so don't feel like you've missed something. Miranda Gutierrez was going to actually start this, but she had a family emergency. So I just wanted to obviously revisit this. I know several of you are very interested in this topic, and so we want to be able to capture what it is you're thinking about. Some of the things that we're doing right now, just as a reminder of what we're working on, is we are changing the notice of intent to submit. So when an institution submits that documentation, we are much clearer about exactly what programs they want to offer, when they plan to offer it, a variety of things. So we're working on that form right now that helps us. We're trying to address some of the things that have been challenges in the past. We are working on bringing the IPR system more in line with program review, such that there's very specific things that we're asking for, rather than keeping it as open as it has been, but making it mandatory that we have the course and sequence and the syllabi and certain things that we haven't been as prescriptive about. We're trying to be more prescriptive so that when you get these new programs, it'll be more consistent in terms of what you've gotten in front of you. We are fixing the review, the feedback sheet, for two reasons. One, because you have all said that, it's hard to follow where they've responded to a question from a reviewer. So we're working on that, but also because it's not ADA compliant with all the color coding and that kind of thing. So for both of those reasons, we're working on a new document to bring to you. We obviously want to talk about the documentation that comes to you all, and we've been giving you everything the last two meetings. We would like to have personnel continue to be available so you can ask them questions during the meeting. And obviously we need to work out more the idea that you talked about last time about having some sort of provisional approval followed by some secondary thing. So we're still batting that around. So hopefully you've sat on that and thought about that over the last couple of months and have some additional ideas to share with us. So that I'm just going to open it up and let you all kind of help us think it through. Looks like we lost this side of the room except for Cheryl.
What did you do, Cheryl? You had a little list there. Could you remind me of that last one?
The idea that came up last time about when the COA approves, it's approving it dependent upon the fact that the institution is going to operate the program with fidelity over the first couple of years.
Like what kind of follow-up could happen in the first 2 to 3 years to ensure that the program is meeting standards,
right,
once they actually are implementing?
Exactly. What they proposed, right. In some cases, because the fact of the matter is we have a 7-year cycle, and 1/7 of the institutions is in any one of those years, and we don't prohibit somebody from proposing a program in any 1 year. So they could have program review, or could be a few years down the line before they have program review.
The current policy right now is if their program review is due within 1 year of the date of their initial approval, they don't do program review. And that will even be better once we get IPR to be more like program review. So it makes a lot of sense that if their program review is within 2 or 3 years, that's the next likely thing. That just follows up. So then we have to figure out, how do you monitor and ensure that the new programs offered at institutions whose program review is 4, 5, 6, or 7 years away, how do you know that program is doing what it's supposed to do? And so it's not one rule for every institution. It's going to depend slightly on where they are in the cycle. But are you kind of supportive of the idea that program review is a very reasonable way to check on it if their program review is within 2, 3, is 4 years okay? Is 4 too far? Microphone.
Harder than people think to actually implement the program they put on paper. And so I think it could be really helpful for people to get it right if they had a little more oversight out the gate. You know, like we just got done looking at these documents, right, and comparing them, and the word support was called out a lot. I mean, that's something that I think this process could do. Like, even if it was just a request for data or a request for documents or artifacts, you know, I'm not even talking about like a site review or site visit. I'm just saying, hey, you know, if you're proposing an induction program, here are some artifacts you should be able to share. And then having to give birth to those things is going to be really useful to the program because now they have it. They might not have thought that they needed these things, but I mean, we've been in business now for a pretty long time, like with something like induction. I think we have some idea of the artifacts that would indicate whether a program's moving in the right direction. Intern programs, there are some really key things that need to be evidenced, right? And maybe that could just be things that people submit at the end of their first year after gaining, you know, IPR. It doesn't involve central scrutiny or the site visit or planning meetings or any of that stuff. Just maybe you know, that maybe that's like within the first year these things happen, and then depending on the cycle, you know, it gets folded into your program review. I don't know.
Hey, Member Alvarado.
So I guess this kind of bleeds a little bit into the work we're doing on revising the manual, right? But I sort of want to take a step back and just say that, you know, part of the review process and, you know, the language that says sort of conditional or whatever, so that it allows for the CTC to have a mechanism to be able to go into any one program that's initially been started, if there's issues or concerns that arise, however they arise, to ensure that there's fidelity to what's being implemented and it matches what was approved. Also, in terms of the initial program review, I think we making clear and you know, certainly working with institutions that are submitting those, understanding that it's not a foregone conclusion, that there is a review by the COA, and you know, ultimately it is the ruling of COA based on the preponderance of evidence and our professional judgment. Understanding that, you know, putting in the effort, I know that it takes a lot of work, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee, you know, approval just because somebody's been working on something for 2 years or 3 years. I think that's the wrong path to take. And so I personally don't think that however long an entity is engaged shouldn't be a factor in deciding whether they get approved or not. It should be based on, are they meeting the standards based on our professional judgment and the evidence presented. And so, again, I would like for us to kind of not go too much into that, though we do have empathy for the effort that's put in. I get that. But stick to the standards, and, you know, if the evidence is yes, then yes. If not, then I think we should be okay with saying maybe hit the pause button.
So I know I should know the answer to this, but even just in the IPR judgments or conclusions, it used to say preliminarily aligned, and now it says aligned, which to me is a difference that can be consequential. So if it's preliminarily aligned, I think it was because then the biennial report would be where you saw if it was aligned. I'm trying to remember why it switched. Okay, so that's too far. That's too far down the road. But so if we were to think of the concept of preliminarily aligned, which would be the judgment of the IPR reviewers, the field, right, BIR, and then the COA would have a role in whether or not we agreed that was preliminarily aligned. And then there was still the understanding on the part of the institution that there was going to be something next to say that they were aligned. And then it wouldn't wait all the way till the site visit. You know, and it might be the program review if it's like within 2 years, or it might be those other types of artifacts, or it could even be on a yearly basis since there's no biennial reports. The ADS doesn't quite capture a lot of the things that we want to know.
No, it doesn't. The term that we use in program review is preliminary aligned. So it would be hard to go preliminary aligned and again preliminary aligned. So we'll have to think this through, but I understand it makes a lot of sense to use preliminary aligned in an initial program review. I think it really does.
Yeah, I couldn't remember having done a lot of the different types of reviews.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember which one do we do that on. Yeah.
No, in this case, I think it does make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm.
Ms. Sullivan and then Member Alvarado.
Thank you. I just want to go back one step to something that the committee member was saying, and I know that at some point during our discussion earlier, it came up about the historic presence of a particular program in California. I think it's really important, however, to be very clear that staff does a very diligent search for evidence to the standards when they're looking at that. So I know that it came up somehow, I think, kind of organically during the conversation. I just want to make sure that everybody really knows how closely staff really sticks to making sure the programs evidence the standards. I think that's important.
Right. So, not to wordsmith, but when an entity is proposing a new program, to me, it's logical to say that it's a conditional approval because it's conditional upon them carrying out the plan that they set forth. And so, that condition is met when they fully carry out. And it kind of addresses our concerns with regards to fidelity to the plan, in that we're saying you're conditionally approved. And then once there's some kind of step that confirms that the program that's being implemented aligns with the plan they proposed, then you can move to whatever term you want to use, but at least it's clear that there's a condition to it.
Be that full accreditation after the conditionally.
So that sounds very logical. That what we'll have to figure out is that step. What is that step that gets them that? Because everybody will be in a different spot in the accreditation cycle. So we will definitely throw that around and try to figure out what that fairness is. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Member Morrison.
And I can just anticipate problems in that when you say, well, if your review's coming up in 2 years or something, that's going to be yours. But for somebody else, we're going to have to create a separate step for you. And I can see people coming here and say, why did we have to go through this other thing that other group didn't have to do? So it can't just be for those people who are not coming up for review. It has to be something for everyone. So maybe it is something that it's just a submission of data rather than a visit.
That part has to be fair, or we're going to get accused of, well, they got it in 2 years, and now you're making me wait until this point in time, or
maybe something
after
any IPR, the condition is that in 2 years there's a biennial report. We bring that back in just for IPR or a
different term.
I need to bring up another point though, and I started to write this down. Some programs are 1 year. Some programs like induction are 2 years. Some program like psychology or counseling can be 3 or 4 years. So it also depends on how long is the program designed to be. Because it kind of like until you get through a cohort worth, we don't even know if they've figured it all out yet. So it's really a complex question. It's fun to think about, but don't have a solution.
Well,
okay, yeah. Member Forbes.
I kind of had a cold chill when I heard the word biennial report coming back. But on the other hand, it had a different, it asked for different things than the ADS does. And so, maybe there's some common ground in which we could have an annual. I mean, I think the assumption with the ADS was it was going to be more robust than the demographics or kind of that it currently is, right? That it's complicated to build that kind of a system. So perhaps there needs to be, or there could be some kind of annual reporting so that no institution gets too far away, but without it still in enough of a streamlined and strengthened fashion that it's not back to the old biennial report, which was kind of unwieldy in other ways.
And I always
especially for the reviewers of those,
as a one-time thing, right? So that 2 year check. And I'm pondering that question, that comment you're saying between the 1, 2, 3, and 4 years. Even a program that's 4 years long, I'm still thinking I would be curious as to how they're doing at year 2. even if they haven't completed that whole cycle. I don't want to wait 4 years to find out, oh, nope, they're only doing half of what they said they were going to do.
That's what makes me come back to Committee Member Tchaikovsky's comment about there are certain things in certain programs that may be really key. You know, the ILP, there are certain things that maybe we ask for that really help us know, okay, they're on the right path. We don't need to have confirmation about everything, but there are certain things that are critical. Yeah, I think there's a lot there.
And if that were submitted on some kind of a routine basis, it could be at the same time of the ADS or something, so it becomes institutionalized and not appearing like random or like, oh, you have to do this, but you don't. Yeah.
Well, and maybe to cross-pollinate efforts here, we talked about exemplary programs in the past. I'm thinking, the staff here does such an amazing job of uncovering, like looking under every rock and like finding all these things. I bet there's artifacts that people could identify that could help kind of map the trajectory of a successful program that could be used to coach other programs to be successful as they move forward. Like, I think maybe there might be kind of indicators of promising, I don't know, program implementation that are evident early in a project's lifespan. And I think identifying what those things are can make these CTC endorsed efforts and expectations more robust. So they're not, like I think of our colleagues from Montebello who are here. There was obviously something major happening district wide, like there was, changes in who was where. And even now that we have these positions that are just recently filled, like I think one thing I appreciate about the standards is that they should endure and persist beyond, certain people who are running programs in districts. So this might be a way to identify some of those lasting practices.
Okay, thank you. This is exciting. It's going to be a new change. Based on what we've learned this year, right? We had some experiences.
We will work on that,
that informed us.
I know we'll have time at the October meeting or whenever our meeting is after August to really dig deep into this because we won't have site visits at that time. So we will make sure that there are some proposals for you to consider or options to consider.
All right. So that does take us to our final item. Item 20, the discussion of proposed changes to the accreditation handbook. Administrator, again, Cheryl Hickey will present this item. Ms. Hickey, will you begin, please?
I'm about to sneeze. I'm sorry. I know. Yeah. So item 20 is the start of looking at the handbook. I was hoping to have more chapters ready for you today, but obviously we did what we could. There was a subgroup that you all arranged last time, and that subgroup met and looked at some draft language, which is all reflected here, gave some good comments and feedback, and it's all here for you. We can kind of, I don't know, I know that this only goes for another 15 minutes, but, and I would love to capture any additional information that you have on this, but primarily some of the things we were trying to get in here were the idea, if I can remember right, the idea that emphasizing the professional judgment of the Committee on Accreditation, and that even though we have standards, regulations, statutes, and those things are all important, that at some point in time the decisions are made by a professional group, and that accreditation is peer review. We wanted to get in there some clear language about when you close programs, and that's the primary section of that is not in front of you today. Wanted to make sure that we got rid of old language, and because we did write the original one in 2016 or adopt it in 2016 before we really started implementing the current system. So bringing the processes and procedures up to date. And I know there were some other areas, but so if you want to kind of go through it as quickly as we can, so you're out of here on time. Obviously the introduction is mostly editorial kind of changes. I'll take any edits that you'd like to make. Should I just open it up for you guys to just, okay. have some edits.
Had a couple of edits.
And at your next meeting, I'll try to bring back the remainder of the items.
Let's see. Any place in here actually where it says all programs, and then in another spot it says all educator preparation programs.
Okay.
I think we need to be
consistent language.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on page 1, there's a couple typos. I'll send those to
Okay,
you.
great. Typos can be sent to me, of course. Please do that.
Any other? Okay. Okay, Member Frelly.
Cheryl, I might have missed this. Are you saying that this is what the ad hoc, the committee has worked on together? Is this something that staff did or a combination of both?
Staff did, and then the group met and gave me some additional feedback.
Great.
They,
Cool. Can we just acknowledge those people who were participating in that group, in case some people were not here at the last meeting?
Yes. Let's see if I can remember who it was. Iris, Jose Luis. Who else was on the phone? Krisha, yes, Kathy, and Cynthia. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to visually picture Cynthia.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Yeah, just want to publicly thank them for
Yes,
their work.
absolutely. They were very helpful.
It amazes me how many times we've revised this, and yet there's still things to change. I mean, some of it because we're changing things here, but still it's like, oh yeah, we changed this and this last time. This one even sounds better.
And it was interesting
Not
because there was a whole section I thought that was missing. I mean, you look at it, it's the section where we talk about common standards. The whole discussion about common standards was sort of not there on chapter 4, page 4. So added in a whole big section there about common standards. So just sort of was one line. So, yeah. I know that we're currently in the process of looking at the other chapters. Terry has taken chapter 8, which is your decision-making chapter, which needs a lot of work. And I think you're proposing restructuring it. Yeah. So, and we're continuing to look at the rest.
Member Morrison, did you have a?
Just we call this the handbook. I've only ever seen an electronic version of it. Is there a physical copy of this as a handbook?
There is not. If you print it, no.
I have one of those.
You printed staple.
If there was an official one.
And we're going to have a contest on what we're going to have on the cover. So submit your content.
In this case, for the handbook, it does not even exist as one document. If you were to go to the webpage where the accreditation handbook is, every chapter is posted separately because we've updated them at different times. The framework does exist as a handbook, but we actually gave up printing both of those. It just saves money, I guess.
And then on top of that, the next step after you adopt a new version is we're going to have to figure out what to regulate. So which pieces need to be in regulation, which is I'm not looking forward to it. And ADA, yes, of course. Any other comments on this?
Right. This is not an action item. It's just for information only, so we'll be hearing from you again on this.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have any thoughts between now and even the August meeting on any parts of the handbook, just go ahead and shoot them to me. We'll make sure to, as we keep working on them, we'll take care of it. And I'm sure the group will meet again because we need their feedback on the rest of it. So,
all right. Thank you, Ms. Hickey. That does take us to the end of our full day. The last item is public comment. Does any member of the public have anything it wishes to say? No comment. All right. That does it. That adjourns this meeting. Deborah's last adjournment. And we wish you all a fabulous summer. And get out there and practice some self-care, as we heard from one of our institutions today. All right. Thank you.